There are several reasons why an engine would make the news and be in the national spotlight, and it's usually not great, like recalls. But sometimes a manufacturer will develop and release an engine that wins all kinds of awards that mean nothing to you and I, because they win these awards right after they're released and not after years of real world data. And that's what matters to us. How good are these engines over the long haul? And if there was an award for that, I feel like the Ford 6.2 liter would be on that list, because these are really good engines. Now, that doesn't mean that people can't break them. Obviously, I've got one on my stand that has a giant inspection port in the side of it. But for the most part, if you take care of these, they will take care of you. The 6.2 liter Ford V8 debuted for the 2010 Raptor. It was the superior engine option over the outgoing poopy 5.4. Starting 1 year later in 2011, this was the base standard engine for the Super Duty trucks, the F250 and the F350. In those trucks, this makes 385 horsepower and just over 400 pound-feet of torque, which is lower than that of the Raptor. They're slightly detuned. Now, the differences between a Raptor engine and a Super Duty engine are not that big. The camshafts are different, the oil cooler assembly is different, and the tune. That's pretty much it. So if you find yourself with a Raptor and somehow you've blown up your 6.2, you can buy one out of a Super Duty, swap those parts over as long as they survived, and save yourself a bunch of money. You can also get the 6.2 liter in the standard F-150 from 11 to 14. Usually you find that in the upper trim levels, like your Harley Davidsons, Limiteds, Lariats, King Ranch. It's an optional engine for those trim levels. Now, I have heard that some of the early 6.2s have been notoriously bad for broken valve springs, and I actually tore down one of these engines a few years ago that had broken valve springs, and it was a mess inside. I'm not sure if that's what happened to this engine. Here we are 3 years later. I don't have a story with this. I can't tell you how many miles are on it. So let's just tear it down and find out what happened. Since we know this engine is religious, it's holy, we're going to see if it turns over, because that's going to determine how hard this is to take apart. Now, it did have a flex plate still on it, and it did not have a torque converter. So I think it's going to turn over. I think it's not going to turn. I'm going to break the bolt off. Maybe we'll try it the other way. Now we're just taking the bolt out. So it's locked up. Neat. The 6.2 liter uses 2 spark plugs per cylinder, and it's kind of unique because there's one plug at the top and there's one plug underneath. So let's get all the coils out, and then we'll pull all the spark plugs. And yes, this thing is pretty beat up. I don't think they took good care of it after it was removed from the truck. Oh, the rubber boot's stuck in that. Oh wait, that's just dirt. We'll get to those in a second. Oh, couldn't neutral drop it. All right, let's blow these out. Let's see if that helped us, besides making a giant mess. No, this one, nope. I can get this one out. This one, I'm gonna preemptively clear this out. Well, that plug broke. So here are all 16 spark plugs, and we have extreme Malice in the Combustion Palace. Second cylinder back on the driver's side, or left bank. Both of these plugs they're destroyed. Absolutely destroyed. Now, all the other plugs on that bank, besides having a huge looking gap, they look all right. We get to the other bank and more smashed plugs, broken porcelain, mechanically re-gapped. The straps are smashed. Look at the gap there. Hold on, focus. Huge gap. Let's go measure that. 85 thousandths. I think that's out of spec. I don't know what spec is, but I would wager that that is well beyond its use. Next, we're going to unbolt the intake manifold. That should do it. That did it. Well, it looks like Fievel Mouskowitz had his bedroom and his bathroom in the valley. Let's take a look at these intake ports. This is the left-hand bank. A lot of dirt and debris in there. Wait, that's bad. Why is the valve guide not attached to the cylinder head anymore? That doesn't go there. Yeah, a lot of dirt. A lot of dirt. On the right-hand bank, again, valve guide deletion in progress. Ooh, that one's got a chunk of something holding the valve open. And that one's full of oil. Let's go ahead and peel the left-hand valve cover off. Sounds loose. Let's see. Well, somebody's been here. You know, I thought the timing cover looked a little cleaner than normal, but in this case, it is clear that this has been either replaced or removed, cleaned, and reinstalled. So I wonder if this had a timing job done. All this feels appropriately tight. So the valve train all looks to be halfishly okay. There's a little bit of transfer on the lobes of the cam. It's going to be really hard to see until I get all the rocker arms and stuff off. We'll get that off soon. I want to get to the other side. But there is a lot of varnish on this side of the cylinder head where the oil would sit. And then, of course, you get to here and you can see how clean the inside of the timing cover is. Now, if this was original and had never been off or cleaned, this would look the same, but it does not, which tells me someone's been in here. You can kind of tell by the way it is right there. RTV. Remove the right-hand valve cover. I need to remove the dipstick tube. It's going to be nice to me today. Maybe. It rotates. Oh, well, we're making progress. See, the hole started here. Now I can remove the right-hand valve cover. All of this looks kind of okay. Yeah, I don't really see anything jumping out at me here. So one thing I like to look for on engines that clearly have a gaping hole in the side of them is I like to look for any areas where oil can settle and then the material that's suspended in oil will sit, like the forbidden bearing glitter. And all I see are chunks of aluminum. So clearly not really too... Wait, why are there chunks of aluminum right there? And where did they come from? I don't see a ton of glitter anywhere else. Now we're going to spend a minute and clear stuff off the timing cover. We'll start with the tensioner. And the water pump pulley, which has the wrong bolts in it. So I'm not sure if it was run with the wrong bolts, but I think we're going to find out. I don't think so. The 14th first thing I'd like to do is remove this alternator bracket. Now the crank pulley. Very loose. Let's see if we can get this off. My crank pulley puller has seen much better days, but that's not going to stop me from trying. It's coming. Success. Since we're here, we'll just get the water pump removed. Bolts are not in great shape. You want to be real gentle. You don't want to hurt them. To me, this looks like a factory It's got a FAMOCO badge on it. Looks like a factory water pump, factory part number. This would be pretty good spare. You know, and I have one of these trucks. I should definitely keep it. And where would I keep a good spare water pump? That's good for it. Let's start on the timing cover. Now a few 10s. Timing cover kind of fell back from that, so it wasn't sealed very well. All right, I think Blue's ready to remove the timing cover. And it's off. Look how clean that is compared to the rest of the engine. Uh-oh, I see problems. Looks pretty good, but if you look in the little pockets here, there's a little bit of forbidden glitter. Just a little silvery sparkles. I don't see any broken guides or damage there, but what I do see, there's some small piston nuggets in the oil pan. It's going to be blown up pretty bad. All right, let's peel the timing system off. We'll start with the tensioners. That wasn't under too much force. That one, on the other hand, all right, we're good. Set these over here. Whoa! Okay, let's see if we can get these chains off. Yeah. Talk about some chains. Yes, that'll do. So here are the timing guides out of this engine. Again, I don't know the miles, but I did see date codes on here. These have not been replaced. These are original. At least they're the same year of manufacture that the rest of the parts on this engine are. And they're in pretty good shape. That one has a little bit of a gouge in it. It's kind of strange. That could have happened while I tore it down. But if you're ever wondering if it's safe to reuse timing guides, there is one foolproof test that you can do to know whether you need to buy new ones or not. Yeah, you should buy new ones. The design of the 6.2 cylinder head lends itself to being able to remove the cylinder head complete with valve train. But we don't not take things apart on this channel. So now we're going to remove the rocker arms and rocker shafts. These are not cramps. We don't need to cram them loose. We're just going to crack these bolts loose. Now that that's off, we can see that the cam spins over nice. Kind of a moot point because I don't know if the cams are worth anything, and I'm pretty sure the cylinder head's wrecked. So let's go ahead and cram the cam cramps loose and pull the cam out of the head. Ooh, that one sprayed me. Oh boy, there is bad stuff in here. Well, the journal in the cylinder head looks pretty rough. Oh, look at that. Let me zoom in here. It's pretty tore up. Classic signs of either not enough oil or debris in the oil. One thing I also like to do is look at the height of the valve spring top hats, the retainers. These things, if they have a bent valve or something's drastically wrong, they'll be at a different height than the rest, but these are pretty uniform. Let's move on to the cam and cam caps. So I'm inclined to believe those two little grooves, since they exist in every single cam cap, are intentional. And there's not a lot of damage outside of that, which is the opposite of what we're used to seeing. Usually spring tension will cause more damage to the caps than the actual, than the journals themselves. The journals usually look better, but in this case it's the opposite. And the camshaft itself, it is not great. It's pretty grooved up. There's some metal transfer on the lobes. This looks like a high mile engine to me. It just reeks of lots of service work. And then looking here, there's also another chunk of aluminum. That doesn't go there. Who knows what that's from? Now we can crack the head bolts loose. Did I miss that? I think I missed that. Oh, these massive head bolts. All right, let's rip its head off. That's not good. So I think you can probably see some form of problem already. Let's get the head gasket off. That looks excellent. Wish I could say the same about the rest of this. Wow. Well, it is lunchtime, but I'm not really in the mood for piston nuggets. That's a big piece. Oh, the rest of this. Yikes. Well, let's take a look here. The first one looks pretty good. A bunch of debris in there, but who knows how it was stored. Second one's gone. It's just not present. And it looks like the rod cap is jammed sideways between the crank journal and the bottom of the bore. That's what it looks like to my eyes. And there's a whole mess of stuff. Bottom of the bore broken. But it's okay because its neighbor is fine. I don't see any issues there or there. Just that one. Surely I can't just remove this. No. That is one with the block currently. It's pinched. It wouldn't be a teardown without some science. And the cylinder head, well, it's very clear which cylinder was struck by a piston. I've seen worse, but this was enough to destroy 2 spark plugs. Did some damage to the chamber here. This is going to have a broken valve guide. We'll take the head apart at the end of the teardown just to see how bad everything is. This is going to be in the scrap bin. So it may be hard to tell from this angle, but this was the oil that came out of the cylinder head. And there's quite a lot of sparkles. Let's get some light on it. There's a better look. That is suspended metal in the oil. Bad. Let's crack the rocker shaft bolts loose. And again, this one spins nice, so the cam is not seized. Now we can cram the cam cramps loose. And again, the rocker arms and shafts look good. I didn't see any issues with any of the rollers. There's a little bit of transfer. That's probably the worst of it. I don't see anything worse. The cam is pretty rough. Not like Chrysler rough, but like Ford rough. It's not the same. Different scale. Definitely signs of dirty oil or oil starvation, or both. The caps look pretty good though. Before we get the main head bolts, there is one right here. And now we can get the big ones. What's behind head number 2? Oh, somehow that's better than the other side. Oh, I shouldn't have said anything. Well, the head gasket's good. This is not, good is not the word I would use. Wow. So the first cylinder, it's got some interesting patterns of fluid in there, but I don't see anything wrong. Not like its neighbor, which just deleted the piston. It's just gone. Look at how many marks are in the cylinder walls. That's from the wrist pin just going crazy, going to town. And ooh, we can see some grade A carnage in there. There's gonna be some broke stuff, as if we thought otherwise. And then we get to its neighbor, and it's just a bunch of trash. But I don't see any damage. It's confined to just the second set of cylinders. Let's get the science out of the way. Perfect. The cylinder head, though, look at how many impact marks there are. That is shot peened? No. Just regular peened by the piston. The rest of these look pretty good, but this one, quite terrible. So the journals in the head look just like the other side, and the reason the journals look worse than the caps is because they have a rocker arm, and the way this works, it puts force in the opposite direction, pushes the cam down instead of the springs pushing the cam up into the caps. But yes, there's definitely been some debris or lack of lubrication here. All right, now it's time to drop the rod receptacle. Hey, look, Ma, no bolts. Oh, there's still some Earl in here. Oh, and shrapnel. A lot. We need to drain the rod receptacle. That would have been on the floor, but now it's in the pan. Well, this is the most fruitful rod receptacle I think we've seen in a long time. I mean, look at this. Look at this treasure. It's amazing. I'm gonna... What is this? That was a connecting rod. Let's get through this. This is what's left of a connecting rod. That is one of the most mangled rods I've seen since the Dodge Ram V10. And there's a ring, 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 ring. Pick up the phone. Ring, ring, more rings. So many rings. All right, what else we got in here? Piston squirter. That could be, this looks like it could be the small end bushing around the wrist pin. Oh, we got a large family size order of piston nuggets here. Flinging stuff out. Look at that big one. We're eating good tonight. Ah, there's the culprit right there. That's what's left of a rod bearing. There's a circlip. What is this? Oh. A destroyed wrist pin? What? No way. All right, here's what I'm going to do. I am going to empty... Wow, there's so much more in here. I'm going to empty all of this out. I'm just going to pour out this engine marmalade. There's so much here. This is the most destroyed engine that we've had in, well, a long time. Look at all this good stuff. I'm gonna get this pan cleaned out for the next guy. I'm just kidding, there's no next guy. All right. This is impressive. I can go fill some potholes in my gravel driveway with this. I'm just gonna kind of organize this by material. There we go, we're just gonna go by using the old magnet Ferris tester. Anything it grabs is likely connecting rod or ring or piston squirter. Of course, we're going to give this all a bath since we're going back together. Really just trying to push most of the muck off. So here is what I have left in the pan. There's still so much metal. This is at least a half nugget's worth, but there's the rest of it. This is what we pull out of the pan. For the most part, this is all aluminum, which in this case is entirely piston, since this is an aluminum or an iron block with a steel pan. All of this is piston. These are the large nuggets here. Here's our gaggle of rings. And then this is all of our ferrous metals. There's our, what's left of one of the connecting rods. Here's the charred bearings that came out. These are sections of a rod. I don't think those are rod cap. And then we've got what's left of 2 rod cap bolts. And then this is the most disturbing. I thought these were invincible, but apparently they are vincible. That is destroyed. You can't install this again. The Ford 6.2 can break a wrist pin. All right, let's rotate this over and see how bad this is. It's not gonna be too bad, right? It's gonna make a mess because of all the dust in the valley, but that's okay. Oh, I just dropped the piston nugget. Oh, wow. It's not good, guys. So the pickup is a terrible place to store your bearings. But this engine decided to just cram this thing full. I mean, where else are they going to go? I think the next step is going to be to remove the pickup tube, which has suffered a couple contusions right here. And then this area, here, let me get a light, it's so dark. That's a better look. This is wrecked, and as we thought, this crank is jammed up on part of the broken rod from the other cylinder. Not this one, but the other one. Wow, that's probably the rod cap, if I'm going to guess. So much damage, and if you look over here, there are some pock marks, some impact marks over here, and it looks okay all the way at the back. It contained the blast pretty good. See what we can get out of this. Oh yeah. There's still so much junk in there. How? I think we're finally starting to get... All right, I think we got most of it. There's the damage. It actually punctured it right here. like I said, a contusion. So this is what came out of the pickup, and this, that is RTV. Now there's definitely some metal in here. That is also RTV. But that's troubling. I don't know that it's enough to totally block it. But, you know, after an engine blows up, sometimes parts fall down. The suction is no longer present at the pickup tube since the engine stopped turning. And maybe the smoking gun fell out. But the fact that there's RTV in here is a real bad sign. Let's remove the oil pump. Those were 8mm. That was a 13. And they bought some bicycle hardware because this is a 9mm. Why? Why? Slide this off. Oh, it looks like I might need glue for that. Let's get this dismantled. So the housings definitely have some scoring. And the oil pump gears, all of those little dings mean that's a piece of foreign material that ran through this and left a little impression. Still present on this too. Yeah, not great. So now the goal is to get the crank to turn over. And we're going to basically use this access hole that the engine created. It's a service hole. And we're going to try to rotate the crank by putting a long bar in here and turning it backwards, since I can't get the crank bolt tight enough in the wrong direction. So that's what we're going to try to do. We're going to see if it works. I hope it works. First, we're going to try blue. No, blue is not enough. Let's try this bar. This isn't working too well either. Ooh, that's making sounds. I don't know what's happening, but I'm doing stuff. All right, well that rod is very loose. I don't see anything else that I can easily pry off of. No, that is locked up. It's very taut. Okay. Well, I don't have access to all of the bolts. I can get the first two rods and pistons out, but I don't think that's going to help us very much. And I would bet that there's some damage to the main bearings. I think what I'm going to do is loosen all the mains. We'll get those all loose, and we'll see if we can turn it over the same way. Every main cap bolt is either removed or loose. Let's see if this changes anything. Well, the crank moves up, and that might be enough to get this out. Let's see here. Look at that. Holy moly. That's not the original shape. Let's see if we can turn this crank over. Did that help us at all? Oh, I think we're back in business. See, we're on the road to recovery. All right, we're going to start right here. We're going to get the first two rods of pistons out. We'll work our way all the way to the back as clean as possible. And then we can pluck the crank out. Uh-oh. All right, let's turn this over to get to, we're going to skip the twisted pair and work to the next pair there. Uh-oh. Those bearings are on there. Oh, the bearings are coming off. The bearings came off. They're bad. All right, final two. It still turns over terribly. Oh, that bearing is... There we are. I'm going to take a second and see if I can get these bearings off. Yes, I can. So far, anyway. Oh, okay. Blue, actually we'll just use the big old bar. I'll just... Look at that. Worked really good. All right, we should be able to lift this out. It's probably going to drop some bearing shells, so I'm going to go ahead and remove some. So we have one rod and bearing? Would you call that a bearing? It's sauteed. We're going to see if we can't get those rod cap bolts out and free this. Maybe. I have no idea what just happened. I just launched the wrist pin out of it though. So that was not great. Ooh, it's warm. Don't take that out of context. I'm going to do something a little different. I'm going to start with the main bearings. And the best ones are not great. The worst ones are pretty terrible. Very chewed up. But better than the other bearings that we're going to see in a minute. On to the rod bearings. Bad. Better. Significantly worse. And somehow better than the previous. These are absolutely in the most charred, sauteed, filleted, flambéed, whatever you want to call them. They got hot. All of this is discolored from a ton of friction that caused a bunch of heat. This is all from lack of lubrication, whether it was dirty oil or oil starvation from either too low of oil or maybe the pickup was clogged. But either way, once the oil is no longer a lubricant and you got metal on metal contact when the engine is turning RPM, you have all of the rest of the engine working against with the friction. And if you have a determined driver, they'll put their foot down to continue to try to maintain speed. And this happens. And then when you get past the wreckage, they're just regular kind of bad. Not good. Onto the rods and pistons. The surviving rods and pistons, while they have some skirt wear, some grooves, and a lot of the rods have impact marks, battle wounds, if you will, they somehow seem to survive in a way that I wouldn't reuse, but They're not this. And they're not this. Of course, here is our destroyed wrist pin, RIP wrist pin. This one even has a little bit of damage to it. It takes a ton of force to create a dent in tool steel like this. Tons of force. And then I couldn't tell you which piston is which, so I just kind of lumped them all together. Some of this is this piston, some is this piston. It's kind of a moot point because this is all, this is like the most recognizable component here. This is all super destroyed. This was definitely not an idle in the drive-through type of failure. This was definitely a trying to make it home towing a trailer type of failure at 5,000 RPM. And then you get back to normal. Now what is kind of surprising is that there's not a ton of damage to the rest of the pistons, like a bunch of debris went through the intake. Usually when something like this happens, you'll find there'll be metal scattered throughout, and then there'll be some impaled in the top of the piston, some in the combustion chamber, and I just didn't see that here. It's all confined right here. On to the crankshaft. It starts out bad and gets way worse. Look at how damaged those counterweights are. I don't know that we've seen them quite this bad. Of course, the offending journal is completely annihilated. There is nothing left here. Look at every single one of these is from flailing debris. And it returns to kind of normal bad over here. Still some metal transfer. This is in real bad shape. This is strictly scrap. There's a better end. That looks like a wrist pin, doesn't it? Try to push a wrist pin out of the block long ways. Never a good choice. There's some pretty deep dents in the journal. Yeah. We haven't had one this bad in a while. Because this thing had 2 deleted pistons, we got a pretty good look at the top of the bores early in the teardown, but this is what the bottom looks like. It looks like it ripped out the oil squirter. There's a lot of deep dents. And this thing it's pretty far gone. I don't think there's anybody with enough ramen noodles to fix this one. And we got a little bit of collection of debris. Some little piston gravel, no big deal. All right, so I was playing around with this stuff, and you see how that's kind of a circular shape, and it'd be really strange if, I don't know, a wrist pin just fit this perfectly. What do you think? This got caught between the block and the rotating crank at like 4,000 RPM. I think that's how you break a wrist pin. I'd say we knock the valves out of this thing to see how bad they are. I'm just gonna do the 2 offended cylinders. That's it. Not gonna do them all. I think I can do these. Wow, it's a little trickier than I thought. This one's really difficult. I don't think I have my tool here either. I took that back to work. Now, obviously these heads to me are nothing but scrap, so I don't really care how I'm doing this. Tried hard enough. Those are some pretty healthy springs. Well, one of the valves doesn't want to come out. We'll get it out. There's an intake valve with part of a stem. That's bent. So as you can see, it broke the stem off on the intake side. The seats aren't terrible. Let's go to the other one. This one fared a little bit better, but it still broke the stem off. You can see it broke the valve guide off on the intake side. Seats don't really have a ton of damage. A broken valve guide's pretty bad. Same deal on the other head. This one might have fared a little bit better. There's a few fewer impact marks. Here's the broken valve guide. Just slides right off. Will it come all the way out? Yeah, look at that. Valve guide, anybody? I'm sure these are bent. And they're not as bent as these are. Look at all those impact marks. There's another guide. And this valve is super bent. That's for one of those 3-angle valve jobs. It doesn't matter how good or bad an engine may be, there's always going to be someone out there that is going to destroy it. And in this case, I don't know who bears more of the responsibility, the person that serviced this engine last or the person that was driving the truck when this engine let go. But collectively, you put both of those scenarios together and you end up with a completely destroyed 6.2 liter Ford V8. Now, anytime you're into an engine and you're cleaning a mating surface, scraping gasket material or RTV or sealant, you need to make sure that none of that ends up in the sump. But this person clearly did not do that, because it doesn't just go to Never Never Land. Never Never Land is the pickup tube and the pickup screen, and you can starve the engine of oil. But I have to say that when I get these cores, it's not like I carefully pluck them from the vehicle after they've blown up and then they carefully make it to the stand. They get tossed around a lot. They get put in boxes on different skids, handled by forklifts, fork trucks, shipped in, my own hauling them in here, unloading them with the cherry picker. There's a lot of reasons why whatever starved this engine of oil may not have been present, let alone the fact that when it blew up, several pieces of rod made contact with the pickup screen and tube, and that could have just knocked everything loose. So I don't really know. It could have been the perfect crime, but the RTV that we found in the screen, I don't think was enough to starve this engine of oil. I think there could have been something else in there that was no longer there by the time we pulled this apart. And then if you're driving a vehicle, and modern vehicles are really good at throwing warnings on the dash and codes and lights on. If you're driving one and something comes on, unless it's a do or die scenario, pull over and figure out why. Don't just keep driving, because the only thing you're going to do is put yourself in a situation you can't get out of without a tow truck, without time on the side of the road or in a parking lot in the middle of nowhere. It's way easier to be proactive than reactive. This thing is junk. This engine is completely annihilated. The heads were trash, the block was trash. But if you want to buy a desk ornament, I will say that every time I say that I'll sell anything out of these engines, this is the stuff that goes fast. So the first emails I get on some of the rotating assembly out of this will be the people that get it, and there's only 2 completely destroyed rods in this engine. Unfortunately, there's not 8, or maybe fortunately, I'm not sure. But either way, if you'd like to buy any parts out of this engine or anything else I've torn down, or if you would like to go to our website and check out the cars we're getting in, you can go to Importapart.com. If you don't see what you're looking for, you can shoot us an email, which I'll leave in the video description. I really hope you enjoyed this teardown. As always, I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.